The capital of Zetheria was a city of light and glass, stretching high into the violet skies like silver rivers frozen in motion. Towers of elegant curves rose from the ground, glimmering with technology the galaxy often called advanced beyond imagination. The streets below were quiet now, unusually quiet for the start of a ceremonial day. Word had spread that Princess Seralith would preside over a meeting of diplomats, a gathering that often determined the course of interstellar trade and alliances. Her presence alone commanded respect, and she knew it. Every move she made, every word she spoke, was carefully measured. Seralith sat on her golden throne in the grand hall. A throne raised on a platform of polished crystal that reflected the intricate carvings on the walls. Her robes shimmered in soft waves, a mixture of traditional elegance and the high-tech fabric that the Lyrians prized. Around her, advisors and officials moved with silent precision, each one trained to anticipate her thoughts, to respond even before she spoke. To the Lyrians, order was life, and control was strength. But today, there was a sense of anticipation in the hall, an energy Seralith could not quite name. She raised a delicate hand, signaling the start of the assembly. Holoscreens lit up around the room, displaying messages and data from far-off planets. Everything seemed normal. She spoke with clarity, her voice echoing through the hall, and the diplomats nodded, agreeing to terms, sharing updates, exchanging the precise courtesies of interstellar etiquette. Seralith felt the familiar calm of control, a satisfaction that comes from knowing that all eyes were on her, that her presence alone could guide decisions. Then the doors opened. It was not a ceremonious entrance, not the slow unveiling of dignitaries or emissaries. It was a sudden swing of massive doors, metal groaning on its hinges, that startled even the most composed officials. Seralith turned her head sharply, her gaze immediately drawn to the figure standing in the threshold. A human, not a diplomat, not a Lyrian official, not someone she recognized from any known alliance. Just a human, standing tall, shoulders squared, uniform slightly scuffed, a helmet tucked under one arm. His boots clicked on the polished floor as he stepped forward, and every eye in the hall followed him. Murmurs started, rising and falling in waves. But Seralith did not hear them. She could not look away. There was something in his presence, something quiet, confident, and yet powerful that made her forget everything she had rehearsed. The human did not bow. He did not kneel. He simply stood, as if the room belonged to him for a moment. Though he carried none of the arrogance the Lyrians often sensed in outsiders, his eyes, deep and steady, scanned the room with a calm that seemed to anchor the chaos around him. Seralith felt an unfamiliar pull, a sense that the person in front of her was more than a visitor. "Captain Ethan Cross," he said, his voice firm, clear, and carried an authority that resonated even through the translator device. "I come on a mission of peace. Though the danger we face is immediate." The room froze. The advisors exchanged quick, nervous glances. Peace was expected, yes, but the mention of danger so bluntly, so confidently, was almost unheard of in Lyrian protocol. Seralith, however, leaned forward, her interest piqued. "You speak boldly," she said, her voice smooth, yet carrying the unmistakable edge of curiosity. Few outsiders enter the palace without hesitation. Fewer speak without caution. Ethan met her gaze evenly. "I have no hesitation," he replied. "And caution alone will not protect your people from what is coming. That is why I am here." There was a pause, a delicate tension in the room that made the air feel thicker. Seralith studied him. His uniform was simple, functional, and his armor bore the marks of travel and conflict. Unlike the Lyrians, who prided themselves on flawless appearance, Ethan wore his experiences openly. There were no embellishments, no unnecessary decorations, and yet, he radiated strength, a confidence built not on ceremony or lineage, but on action. She noticed it first in the way he stood, the way he spoke, and the way he seemed to see the room not with curiosity alone, but with clarity. He had not come to impress. He had come to act. "Very well," she said finally, rising from her throne. The movement startled some of the advisors, who were unaccustomed to the princess leaving her position during a formal assembly. Sarilith ignored their disapproval. She would hear him herself. Protocol could wait. This human, he deserved her attention. Ethan inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement, not as a gesture of submission, but as recognition of her decision. He began to speak, describing the threat in careful detail. A fleet, rogue and unbound by alliances, was moving through the galaxy, attacking worlds indiscriminately. They were not interested in negotiation or conquest through diplomacy. They sought dominance, destruction, and control. The Lyrians, despite their advanced technology, had never encountered such a force. Their defenses, meticulously planned and executed, had never been tested against an enemy so unpredictable. As Ethan explained, Sarilith felt a stirring she had not felt in years. Concern for her people, urgency to act, and a growing respect for the human before her. He did not merely describe the threat. He offered strategies, solutions, and insights that went beyond Lyrian tactics. His approach was unconventional, relying on adaptability, rapid decision-making, and the ability to respond to unexpected changes. Lyrians valued precision and consistency, but what Ethan proposed required improvisation and risk, a combination that made Sarilith both uneasy and intrigued. As he spoke, Sarilith found herself forgetting the ceremonial words she might have used, forgetting the throne beneath her, the crystal platform, the carefully crafted protocol. She focused solely on Ethan, on his words, his presence, the way he analyzed problems, as if they were puzzles meant to be solved. She realized, almost in surprise, that she had not been this engaged in decades, not even during the most critical diplomatic meetings. "Your people," she said, her voice quieter now, yet firm, "have faced challenges before. Why have you come alone? Without your fleet or your council?" Ethan's expression remained steady. "Because the strength of humans is not in numbers or hierarchy. It is in adaptability, in courage, and in determination. A fleet cannot think as a single soldier can, and a council cannot act as quickly as a single mind committed to survival. That is why I am here. To act where others might hesitate." The words struck her. They were simple, almost blunt, but carried a weight of truth she could not ignore. For all their elegance, Lyrians often relied on systems and procedures that could slow them down when speed mattered most. Humans, he suggested, had a different kind of power. A force that came from spirit, from will, from an unyielding refusal to give in to fear. Advisors whispered among themselves, some skeptical, some wary. Sarilith did not turn to them. She did not need their approval. This human's presence had already challenged her assumptions. He had made her forget her throne, her position, her pretense of control. She felt something new. The desire to act, to see beyond tradition, to trust in the unexpected. "Then you will meet with my war council," she said finally. "You will show us these strategies of yours, and you will do so under my observation." Ethan inclined his head. "I would not expect anything less, Princess." As the council prepared for the meeting, Sarilith watched him move among the Lyrians, and something else stirred within her. Humans, she realized, were unpredictable in ways that could either endanger or save entire worlds. And this human, he had entered her hall not as a subject, not as a diplomat, but as an equal in courage, an equal in determination. Even without intending to, he had shifted the balance of the room. When the council gathered in the war room, Sarilith followed Ethan's movements closely. He studied maps of the galaxy projected in 3 dimensions, traced potential paths of the enemy fleet with quick, precise gestures, and asked questions the Lyrians had not considered. He challenged assumptions politely, yet firmly, and as he spoke, she could see her advisors listening, hesitant at first, then increasingly engaged. By the time the meeting ended, Sarilith knew one thing clearly. The human soldier was more than just a visitor. He was a catalyst, His presence alone had forced her people to consider new possibilities, new strategies, and perhaps even new alliances. As she escorted him back to the main hall, she felt a curious sense of relief and excitement. The day had begun as another ceremonial routine, filled with expected speeches and predictable gestures. Now, everything had changed. The world, or at least her world, felt larger, more dangerous, yet filled with potential she had never imagined. Ethan turned once, meeting her gaze, and for a moment, no words were necessary. In his steady look, she saw purpose, clarity, and the quiet certainty of one who had faced impossible odds and survived. Sarilith realized, with a sense of wonder, that she had forgotten her throne, forgotten her status, and for the first time in a long while, was simply human, in her curiosity, in her hope, in her desire to see what this soldier could accomplish. The doors closed behind them, but the impression remained. Cytheria, and its proud princess, had seen something extraordinary today. Something human, and the galaxy had just begun to notice. The war room of Cytheria was vast. A circular chamber with holographic projections of stars and planets hovering in midair. Sarilith led Ethan Cross inside, and the Lyrian generals and scientists, who were masters of their craft, turned their attention to the human soldier. Some watched with suspicion, others with curiosity, but all were silently aware that today would be unlike any other day in the history of their civilization. Ethan stepped forward calmly, scanning the holographic displays. He did not seem intimidated by the complexity, nor by the authority of those surrounding him. Instead, he studied the projections with a careful focus, eyes narrowing as he traced the paths of ships and energy flows across the galaxy. Sarilith followed closely, intrigued by the way he worked. She had expected arrogance, a soldier trying to assert dominance, but Ethan was different. His confidence came not from titles or rank but from understanding, from the knowledge that action and thought could change outcomes. "Your fleet is impressive," Ethan said, speaking through the translator device. "Your defensive systems are strong, but they are predictable. Any enemy with intelligence and speed could exploit patterns you trust too heavily." A Lyrian general, tall and formal, frowned. "Predictable? Our fleet has never failed in any simulation. Our calculations are precise." Ethan turned to him calmly. "Simulations are useful, but they rely on assumptions. Real threats don't follow assumptions. The fleet approaching your planet doesn't care about your traditions or your systems. It adapts. You must adapt faster." Sarilith felt a thrill of respect. Even the general's rigid tone could not shake Ethan's conviction. She realized that the human was not just speaking. He was teaching them to think differently, to challenge their own beliefs. That was a rare skill in any civilization, even one as advanced as the Lyrians. Ethan began to outline his strategy. The rogue fleet was massive, moving in precise formations designed to overwhelm planetary defenses. Traditional approaches would slow them down, but not stop them. He proposed a plan that relied on small, rapid response units, coordinated strikes, and deception methods humans had perfected in conflicts across their own world, often against odds much greater than those faced by Cytheria. He drew attention to a critical weakness in the fleet. They rely heavily on central energy cores. Hit those, and the formation collapses. The key is speed, stealth, and precision. You cannot rely on brute force alone. The generals whispered among themselves, some skeptical, some intrigued. Sarilith watched Ethan carefully. Every move he made was calculated, yet flexible. He did not command them with arrogance. He suggested with conviction. She began to feel that perhaps humans, despite their simplicity compared to Lyrian sophistication, held strengths that her people had never fully appreciated. A young Lyrian scientist, her skin shimmering with the bioluminescence common to their species, spoke up. "Captain Cross, your tactics are unconventional. Are you confident they will succeed?" Ethan nodded. Confidence is not enough. Success comes from execution and teamwork. You have the technology. I can provide the strategy. Together, we can make it work. Sarilith felt her admiration grow. She had always valued skill, intelligence, and courage in her people. But Ethan represented a combination of these traits in a way that was foreign, yet inspiring. She realized that her own judgment had been challenged, not by an alien, but by a human, a being she had once considered fragile compared to the might of her civilization. The council worked through the hours, mapping every potential move of the rogue fleet. Ethan's insights were sharp and practical. He suggested repositioning certain defensive satellites, using decoy ships to draw attention, and deploying human-style rapid response teams to exploit weaknesses. His perspective forced the Lyrians to think beyond their normal patterns, to consider possibilities they had ignored in favor of precision and tradition. Sarilith watched as Ethan moved among them, calm and focused. She could see the tension in the room ease slightly as the Lyrians adjusted to his guidance. Even the skeptics began to acknowledge the value of his approach. In a culture where reputation and hierarchy were everything, it was remarkable that a single outsider could command such respect purely through thought and action. When they finished the planning session, Sarilith invited Ethan to see the fleet firsthand. They boarded a transport vessel that took them high above Zetheria's surface, where the Lyrian warships rested in orbit. From this vantage point, the sheer scale of the task ahead was visible. Ships of all sizes stretched across the void, weapons systems gleaming, shields active, ready to defend the planet. Ethan studied them with a keen eye. Impressive, he said. But impressive doesn't guarantee survival. Preparation and adaptability do. Sarilith smiled slightly. She had seen the same words in practice, in his strategy, in his calm demeanor. Humans, she realized, did not rely on appearances or displays of power. They relied on creativity, courage, and action. And now, Zetheria might benefit from those qualities. The first signs of the rogue fleet appeared on the outer edges of the star system. They moved like shadows, disciplined and silent, yet ominous. Sensors detected energy spikes, confirming the fleet's weapon systems were active and their intentions aggressive. The Lyrians tensed, their calm professionalism faltering slightly as the reality of the threat became immediate. Ethan stepped forward to the observation deck, hand resting lightly on the railing. "They are organized," he said, "but organized doesn't mean unbeatable. We strike quickly, and we strike smart. That is how we survive." Sarilith observed the human carefully. His words were simple, but they carried authority. She felt a strange mix of reassurance and challenge. He did not promise victory. He promised action. And that, she realized, was far more powerful than empty assurances. The battle began in the hours that followed. The rogue fleet moved aggressively, testing Zetheria's defenses. Energy beams cut through space, shields flaring as they absorbed attacks. Lyrian warships fired with precision, but the enemy was fast, unpredictable, and relentless. Panic was a luxury the Lyrians could not afford, but tension ran high. Ethan coordinated with the Lyrian captains, guiding small squadrons of human-style strike teams. They moved through gaps in the enemy formation, targeting the weak points he had identified. The combination of human tactics and Lyrian technology created openings the enemy had not anticipated. Sarilith watched from the command bridge, heart racing, as the plan unfolded. The human soldiers moved with courage and precision, improvising when situations changed, adapting faster than any simulation had predicted. Even when a small unit encountered unexpected resistance, they adjusted quickly, striking back with strategy and coordination. During a critical moment, a rogue flagship targeted the palace itself. Sarilith froze as alarms blared, but Ethan remained calm. He coordinated a counterattack, directing a small strike team to intercept and disable the ship's energy core. The maneuver was risky, but it worked. The flagship faltered, its formation breaking apart, and the immediate threat to the palace was neutralized. Seralith felt a surge of admiration. This human, this soldier who had entered her throne room with nothing but courage and knowledge, had just saved her people from a disaster they had been unprepared for. His presence was not just useful, it was transformative. By the end of the battle, the rogue fleet had retreated, leaving Zytheria battered but intact. The Lyrians had survived, not by relying solely on their technology or traditions, but by embracing an approach that was new, adaptive, and human. The victory was celebrated, but Seralith knew it was more than that. It was a lesson, a revelation. Humans, despite their perceived simplicity, possessed qualities that could inspire and even reshape civilizations. In the quiet after the battle, Seralith stood on the observation deck with Ethan. The stars were calm now, the immediate threat gone, and the planet below slowly recovering from the chaos. She looked at him with a sense of deep respect. "You have done more than I expected," she said. "More than any of us expected. You have shown us that courage, ingenuity, and adaptability can outweigh sheer strength." Ethan nodded, modest but firm. "Humans have always relied on those things. We survive because we think, act, and adapt. And today, Zytheria survived because your people were willing to do the same." For the first time in years, Seralith felt something she had not felt in her role as princess. Gratitude without hierarchy, admiration without obligation, respect without formality. She realized that even as royalty, even as a leader of one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, she could learn from this human soldier. Ethan looked out at the recovering city, then back at her. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The galaxy is larger and more dangerous than any of us know. But we can face it together, if we choose to." Seralith smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. For the first time, she did not think of her throne, her status, or her traditions. She thought of the possibilities, of the future, and of the human who had walked into her life and changed the course of her world. The partnership was no longer uncertain. Humans and Lyrians had faced the first storm together, and Seralith knew that with courage, intelligence, and unity, they could face whatever came next. The war room, once a place of rigid planning, had become a space of possibility, and the princess, who had once ruled from her throne with poise and control, had discovered something she had never expected: a deep respect for the strength and spirit of humanity. Ethan Cross, human soldier, had arrived, and the galaxy had begun to notice. The calm that followed the first skirmish did not last. Weeks passed, and intelligence reports showed that the rogue fleet was regrouping, planning a far larger and more coordinated assault on Zytheria. The initial victory had bought time, but the threat remained, greater than ever. The Lyrians were tense. Their technology was unmatched in most parts of the galaxy. Yet even the most advanced ships and weapons could not guarantee survival against an enemy that adapted as quickly as this fleet did. Seralith had spent countless hours in the war room with Ethan Cross. Every conversation, every strategy session, revealed more about the humans than she had anticipated. Humans, she realized, thrived under pressure. Their creativity was fueled by uncertainty, their courage by danger. And this human soldier, in particular, seemed to carry a calm energy that inspired all those around him. "You've changed our approach," she told him one evening as they studied the holographic star maps of the approaching fleet. "We are no longer purely defensive. We are unpredictable, adaptable. That is unusual for my people." Ethan smiled faintly. "That is exactly why I'm here. Technology alone cannot win wars. You need strategy, improvisation, and courage, qualities humans rely on because we often face challenges much greater than our numbers." She looked at him thoughtfully. Courage, strategy, improvisation. These were qualities she had always valued in her people. But seeing them in action through Ethan's eyes was different. He did not simply tell them what to do. He showed them how to think, how to act under pressure, and how to turn apparent weaknesses into strengths. The fleet appeared at the edge of Zetheria's star system, sooner than expected. From orbit, it was a terrifying sight. Ships of immense size, moving in perfect synchronization. Weapons systems glowing with lethal energy. The rogue fleet's intent was clear. They intended not only to challenge Zetheria's defenses but to destroy its leadership and cripple its civilization. Seralith stood on the command bridge, observing the fleet with a mixture of fear and determination. She was no longer concerned with appearances or protocol. Her focus was on action, survival, and the human soldier beside her who had earned her complete trust. Ethan moved among the Lyrian commanders, calm and precise. "Divide your forces into smaller units," he instructed. "Each will have a specific task. Redundancy is important, but flexibility is more important. Predictable formations will fail." A young captain looked uncertain. "We have never operated like this. Our fleet is built for precision, not improvisation." "Then it is time to adapt," Ethan replied simply. His tone carried no arrogance, only certainty. "If you want to survive, you must think differently. Trust in your skills, but trust in your ability to adjust even more." The Lyrians hesitated, but Seralith's presence provided reassurance. She had witnessed Ethan's strategies and simulations, and she trusted him completely. "Do as he says," she commanded. "Our people's lives depend on it." As the battle began, chaos erupted across Zetheria's orbit. Energy beams cut through the void, shields flaring and absorbing attacks. The Lyrian ships moved with precision, but the rogue fleet anticipated many of their standard maneuvers. Losses occurred quickly, and tension mounted. Yet, in the midst of chaos, Ethan's strategy shone. Small squads of ships, directed by his orders, moved unpredictably, weaving in and out of the enemy formation. They struck at energy cores, disabled weapons systems, and created openings where none were expected. The human approach was risky, but effective. Where Lyrian tactics alone would have failed, the combination of technology and human ingenuity succeeded. Seralith watched from the command bridge as a particularly large enemy vessel turned toward the palace. Her heart pounded. This was the moment that could decide the outcome of the battle. Ethan noticed her tension. "Focus," he said calmly. "The fleet underestimates what we can do. Trust your people and trust the plan." He coordinated a strike team personally, assigning a human-led squad to intercept the vessel. The plan required perfect timing. One mistake, one delay, and the flagship could destroy the palace's shields. From the observation deck, Seralith held her breath as the squad approached. Energy beams cut past them. Explosions rocked the void. And yet the team advanced, precise and unyielding. Ethan's calm voice continued to guide them, adjusting their trajectory, advising on when to accelerate and when to divert. The Lyrian pilots, who had never operated this way before, adapted quickly under his guidance. The flagship's energy core was hit, just as Ethan predicted. It faltered, its shields flickered, and the rogue fleet's formation wavered. The remaining enemy ships were disoriented, and the Lyrian fleet seized the opportunity to counterattack with coordinated precision. Slowly, the tide of battle shifted. During the fight, Seralith saw a human pilot, young and determined, maneuver skillfully despite sustaining damage to his ship. He executed maneuvers she had never seen in Lyrian training, using speed, unpredictability, and courage to avoid destruction and achieve objectives. The sight impressed her deeply. Humans, it seemed, were not only resilient, but fearless in ways that her people rarely were. Hours passed. The battle raged on, and losses were sustained on both sides. Yet with Ethan's guidance, the Lyrians adapted quickly, exploiting weaknesses they had never considered. The rogue fleet, though powerful and organized, could not anticipate the combination of Lyrian precision and human ingenuity. The unpredictability of human tactics became their greatest challenge. Seralith remained at the command bridge, issuing commands, observing, and learning. She had never been more aware of the human quality of adaptability. Ethan's calm demeanor in the face of danger inspired her people, encouraged them to trust their instincts, and reminded them that courage could change the course of events as much as technology could. At one point, a rogue cruiser broke through the Lyrian defensive perimeter, heading straight for the palace. Alarms blared. Seralith's heart raced, yet Ethan's voice cut through the panic, calm and commanding. Take the flanking route. Use the smaller ships to distract. Focus fire on the bridge. Now. The Lyrian fleet executed the maneuver with surprising speed. The cruiser was intercepted before it could reach its target. The palace remained safe. Seralith felt a surge of admiration and relief. The human soldier had saved her people not once, but multiple times during this battle. Not through brute force alone, but through intelligence, courage, and strategy. As the battle drew to a close, the rogue fleet retreated. Their losses were heavy, and their morale broken. The Lyrians had survived, but they knew the danger had not ended. Yet in this moment, there was triumph. Seralith realized that this victory had been possible not because of superior technology alone, but because humans and Lyrians had worked together, combining the best of both worlds. Ethan turned to Seralith, standing calm amidst the aftermath. "This is not the end," he said. "The galaxy will continue to challenge us. But today, we showed that courage, adaptability, and unity can overcome even the most organized and powerful enemies." Seralith nodded, understanding fully. "You have done more than I imagined. My people have always valued skill and precision. But today, we have learned that courage, creativity, and determination are just as powerful. You have changed the way we see ourselves." Captain Cross, he smiled faintly, not boastful, simply acknowledging the truth. Humans have always relied on those qualities. You, Lyrians, have the tools and intellect. Together, we are stronger than either of us alone. The aftermath of the battle was a moment of reflection for Seralith. She walked through the palace, observing the recovery efforts, and noted how her people now spoke differently of the human soldier. He was no longer an outsider or a curiosity. He had become a symbol of courage and ingenuity, a force that had inspired a civilization to think differently and act boldly. In private, Seralith reflected on her own feelings. She realized she had not thought of her throne, her protocol, or her image once during the battle. Instead, her attention had been entirely on the human soldier who had walked into her life and changed it. He had reminded her, and her people, that even in the most advanced civilizations, the human spirit, its courage, adaptability, and determination, could be a decisive force. As night fell over Zytheria, the city glowed softly beneath the violet skies. Ships hovered in orbit, some damaged, some preparing for repairs, all ready for what the future might bring. The princess stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars, and knowing that the galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wonders alike. Yet she felt hope. Ethan Cross, human soldier, had proven that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology, wealth, or numbers. It was their unshakable spirit. And that spirit had just saved her planet. Seralith knew that the next challenges would be even greater. But with humans by her side, and with courage guiding every decision, she felt that Zytheria could face anything, and in that moment, she made a silent promise, not to her throne, not to her title, but to the future, to the survival and growth of her people, and to the human soldier who had reminded her of what true courage looked like. The galaxy had witnessed a battle, but Seralith had witnessed something more. The extraordinary power of a human, standing strong and calm, changing the course of history with intelligence, bravery, and heart. The battle was over. Zytheria's skies, once filled with fire and energy beams, were now calm. The rogue fleet had retreated, its forces diminished and scattered. On the surface, the city sparkled with lights reflecting from repaired towers and streets, and below, engineers and citizens moved swiftly to restore what had been damaged. The scent of scorched metal and burnt energy still lingered faintly in the air. But the city had survived, thanks to a combination of Lyrian technology and the ingenuity of a human soldier. Princess Seralith walked through the corridors of the palace, observing her people as they worked. The mood was lighter than she had expected. There was relief, yes, but also a spark of excitement. Her people spoke differently now about strategy, about courage, about adaptation, and most of all, they spoke about Ethan Cross. Even the generals, those most set in tradition, had changed. They no longer questioned the human's tactics or his judgment. Instead, they analyzed his methods, eager to learn from him, to incorporate his thinking into their own strategies. Seralith could not help but smile. This was more than a victory against an enemy. It was a victory of knowledge, collaboration, and perspective. Ethan entered the palace quietly, carrying only a small satchel of supplies. He did not march in triumphantly. He did not demand recognition, yet every person in his path turned to him, and even those who had been skeptical or dismissive now looked with admiration. He moved with calm confidence, eyes scanning the room with the same intensity he had shown in battle. Seralith approached him as he reached the main hall. Her robes shimmered softly under the ambient light. Yet she felt no need for ceremony. The throne, once her symbol of authority, now felt unnecessary. Her attention was entirely on the human who had changed everything. "You've done more than I could have imagined," she said. Her voice was steady but carried warmth. "Not just for my people, but for me. For all of Zytheria." Ethan gave a small nod. "I only did what was necessary. Your people are skilled, intelligent, and brave. I merely helped guide the way." Seralith studied him, recognizing the quiet humility behind his words. Humans often did not boast, she realized, but their actions spoke louder than any title or decoration. This human soldier had walked into her palace, into her life, and demonstrated a strength and wisdom that even her most advanced systems could not replicate. The princess led him to a balcony overlooking the city. The glow of lights reflected off the violet sky, creating a scene of peace that contrasted sharply with the chaos of the battle just hours before. She leaned on the railing, looking out at the city, and then back at Ethan. "Your presence has changed my people's perspective," she said softly. "We have always relied on order and precision, but today we learned the value of adaptability, courage, and quick thinking. We have seen the strength of humanity." Ethan looked at the city, then at her. "Humans survive because we never give up. Even when everything seems against us. We adapt, we act, and we protect what we care about. Your people showed the same courage, and together, we succeeded." The moment was quiet, filled with unspoken understanding. Seralith felt a deep respect for this human soldier, not because of rank or authority, but because of the spirit he carried. His courage had inspired her people, and reminded her of the power of determination and ingenuity. She realized that even as a princess, she could learn from him. News of the battle spread across Zytheria, and soon the people gathered to celebrate. Citizens filled the streets, waving banners of their colors, singing songs of survival and unity. Ethan remained composed, observing quietly, allowing the Lyrians to honor their victory, while knowing that true recognition lay in actions, not ceremonies. Seralith insisted on leading the celebration, standing before the crowd with Ethan beside her. She addressed her people with words of gratitude, humility, and inspiration. "Today, we faced a threat unlike any other," she said. "We survived because we worked together, because we trusted one another, and because we dared to act when fear could have stopped us. We owe our survival not only to our technology, but to courage, creativity, and collaboration. And I thank Captain Ethan Cross for reminding us of what true courage looks like." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing through the city. The Lyrians, who had once relied solely on tradition and hierarchy, now saw the value of innovation and adaptability. They began to speak openly about incorporating human strategies into their future defenses. Seralith smiled, feeling hope and pride. After the celebration, Seralith and Ethan walked through the quieter streets of the city, observing repairs and restoration. Children played in the open spaces, unaware of the danger that had threatened their world, while adults worked tirelessly to restore their homes and businesses. It was a scene of resilience, of life moving forward despite adversity. You have changed more than our battle plans, Sarilith said quietly, speaking as much to herself as to him. You have changed our thinking, our perspective. Even I, who sit on a throne and command authority, have learned from you. Ethan glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. Leadership is not about a throne or a title. It's about guiding people to act, to think, and to survive together. You did the same today. I only helped remind everyone what is possible. Sarilith laughed softly, a sound of relief and admiration. And yet, I forgot my throne the moment you entered my hall. I was so focused on understanding you, learning from you, and witnessing what you could do, that tradition, protocol, and pride were irrelevant. Ethan raised an eyebrow, half amused, half curious. It seems I made quite an impression. You did more than that, she said. You reminded me that even in the most advanced civilization, even in the grandest halls of power, there is always value in courage, ingenuity, and humanity. The two walked in silence for a while, observing the city and the stars beyond. Scytheria had survived, and yet the galaxy remained vast and dangerous. Sarilith knew that threats would come again, stronger and more cunning, but she also knew that humanity, with its spirit and determination, would stand alongside her people, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next morning, Sarilith called a council meeting, inviting Ethan to participate. The Lyrian officials were initially tense, unsure how to include a human in their deliberations, but as Ethan spoke, offering insights and strategies, the room shifted. His calm confidence and clear reasoning earned respect quickly, and soon even the skeptics listened attentively. Humans see solutions where we see obstacles, Sarilith said privately to one of her generals. They remind us that courage and adaptability are as important as technology and protocol. Ethan's role became not just that of a soldier, but of a teacher and strategist. He worked alongside Lyrian leaders to improve defenses, train rapid response teams, and plan for potential threats. His influence reshaped Scytheria's approach to security and diplomacy. He inspired not only the military but scientists, engineers, and civilians alike. Sarilith often observed him quietly, noting the way he led not with authority alone but with example. He spoke simply, acted decisively, and encouraged others to think independently. In doing so, he reminded her of the unshakable power of the human spirit, a force that could inspire, unify, and overcome even the most formidable challenges. In a private moment, she addressed him directly. You have done more than protect my people. You have reminded me that even I, as a princess, can learn, adapt, and grow. Your courage has changed Scytheria, and it has changed me. Ethan's response was quiet, humble. You already have the strength. I only help guide it. Humans survive by acting, by adapting, and by protecting what matters. You did all of that today. I only helped remind everyone what was possible. Days later, the city honored him with a public recognition ceremony. Sarilith stepped down from her throne, joining him at the podium. She did not speak of titles or rank. She spoke of courage, teamwork, and the spirit that had saved their world. She acknowledged the bravery of both humans and Lyrians, emphasizing the importance of collaboration. The crowd cheered, recognizing a hero not because of uniform or title, but because of action and heart. As the ceremony ended, Sarilith and Ethan stepped away from the crowd, overlooking the restored city. The sky was calm, stars twinkling like distant gems. She felt a deep sense of gratitude and hope. The galaxy is vast, she said. There will be more challenges ahead, but I believe we can face them together. Humans and Lyrians, united by courage and ingenuity, are stronger than we ever imagined. Ethan nodded. And we will. Wherever threats come, we adapt, we fight, and we survive. That is what humans have always done. And now, so will your people. For a long moment, they stood together, observing the city below, feeling the quiet hum of life and recovery. Seralith realized that the galaxy was no longer a place of only threats and politics. It was a place of potential, opportunity, and unity. And humans, with their courage and ingenuity, would play a central role in shaping that future. The princess finally smiled fully, a genuine expression that reflected pride, hope, and deep respect. She had learned that leadership was not about thrones or ceremonies, but about courage, wisdom, and the ability to inspire others. She had learned that even the smallest actions, guided by the human spirit, could change the course of history. Ethan Cross, human soldier, had walked into her life, into her palace, and changed the destiny of Zytheria. And in doing so, he reminded the galaxy of the strength, ingenuity, and resilience of humanity. As the stars sparkled above and the city hummed below, Seralith knew one thing for certain. The future was bright, because humans had proven, once again, that when courage and determination meet opportunity, even the impossible could be achieved, and Zytheria and the galaxy would never forget it.